Hello again, yes, I'm still here. No one cares about my opinion, but I'm gonna give it anyway, and this time I've got a reason. In the last 2 weeks, Nintendo of Japan have struck again, claiming my Switch impressions video, which is over 2 years old at this point. Yay! With a lovely, we'll take all the money stamp. So, one heavily critical video has been essentially taken down, another must take its place. After all, this fucking ship must always have a captain.
The Dutchman sails as its captain commands.
And its captain is to sail it as commanded.
So I'm going to keep my angry eyes pointed straight to the Switch. Firstly, I do want to point out for the record I do own a Switch, and I rather like the brave little tablet that could. See, it's right here. If only it had something worth doing on it beyond half-a-decade-old ports, indie titles that are already bought on superior platforms, and yet another platformer. Seriously, Nintendo, buck up your ideas. No, instead I'm going to pick on Nintendo's other little pet project, Pokemon. I have no shame in saying that I'm a Pokemon fan. My first Pokemon game was actually Pokemon Gold, which I still own and have countless of hours in experience. And since then I have purchased a copy of every subsequent generation, apart from Gen 3. Sue me. But with a new Switch title ready to take on the stage, I was anything but excited. Kanto for the 4th time? Nah, thanks, I'm good. Only the first 151? Well, at this point I'm not even acknowledging it. Random battles missing? Now I'm pissed. I'm pretty sure you can see where this is going. Many people have been harping on about the casualization of Pokemon in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and I'm right there next to them. And after watching trailer after disappointing trailer, the more I'm beginning to hate this iteration. So, let's start from the most obvious and work our way down the issues. And we'll start with the random wild battles. Obviously this one shouldn't need any explanation, seeing it is a core mechanic of the franchise since its inception. Yet I find myself in a bewilderment when I find not just a few dozen, but hundreds of people who hate this feature. Surely this is like a FIFA fan turning around and saying that they hate playing the matches? Do you want to know what I tell those people? They should go and play Football Manager, not FIFA. Not only does removing the random wild battles remove the mystery and the surprise of what Pokemon you could encounter in an area, but it also removes the shock of finding shinies entirely. Or do people find this to be dull when they find that 1% encounter rate Pokemon that they've had to spend time and effort finding? Then again, the current trend following on from X and Y seems to be wholly against the idea of putting in effort, as the last few games have forced you to capture the legendaries, and have basically given you an XP share straight out of the gate. Yes, I agree that Pokemon World needs to be looked more populated, but slapping every Pokemon you can to catch into a route and letting them wander aimlessly gives the player the option to avoid the encounter entirely. So why does everyone keep a Pokemon with them if they don't exactly actively engage the player? What's the hazard? See? Suddenly base level rules of the Pokemon world are gone completely. So was Professor Oak bullshitting when he said wild Pokemon actively engage the player in tall grass? Apparently, according to Let's Go. Keep in mind the wild encounters. You can apparently only catch wild Pokemon, not battle them, which calls into question the most integral part of Pokemon, battling them. Of course, there's still trainer battles, and you can gain experience by successfully catching whatever wild Pokemon you encounter. So leveling isn't a massive issue, but that means that the only time a player can experiment with moves or bespoke tactics is when there's a risk to the player, in a trainer battle, where you can lose, and more importantly, have a punishment because of losing. I used wild battles to try new things out, to find out what worked and what didn't, and if I got into a tight spot, there was still the opportunity to run away. This opportunity won't be given to new players. This is detrimental to someone trying to learn the game, because ultimately, Pokemon is an RPG with a turn-based battle system. So, if you're not going to practice using the turn-based battle system, how do you learn how to play the game? So we've encountered the wild Pokemon, we can't battle the wild Pokemon, so we've caught them. What happens now? Well, if we look to Pokemon Go for any reference, we'll either keep the Pokemon, or crush them into edible treats, seeing as the treats aren't there to evolve the Pokemon, because leveling is still in the game, and that's how they evolve now, thanks to Let's Go. There must be for stat improvement. So how many Zubats are you planning on ethnically cleansing just to get your Pikachu's EVs perfect? Oh, IVs and abilities have been dropped entirely? Well, that just makes every Pikachu identical unless you shove pills into their mouth, or depending on their nature. Nice morals there, Game Freak. If you can't win, just pump yourself up with drugs and you'll do fine. So we've caught our team, Now it's time to battle with other trainers. Without abilities, it removes half the battle system already, and from then on the system is the same, minus quite a few moves obviously, because we're using the first 151. Add returning Mega Evolutions, because we needed some sort of gimmick to resurrect. It might as well be the one we banned in every competitive tournament, am I right? So there's the battle system, entirely stripped back to Generation 2. What fun! How much is this game again? £60? Can't you just taste that value, folks? So you've caught some more, battled, trained, and now it's time to take on Pokemon's signature gyms, which, regardless of what you say, they're still gyms. When they're called trials, they're just a different sort of gym. And to prove how well you've raised your team for every eventuality, even those where you aren't likely to come out on top. What do you mean I can't enter the gym before a certain level? What do you mean I need to have it in my party and effective typing to even enter? Excuse me, but how patronising is that? The game will be forcing me to catch specific Pokemon and keep them in my party and level them up to the required level to enter a specific gym to progress the game? Why bother allowing me to catch and raise 6 Pokemon in the first place if I need a slot for a Gatekeeper Pokemon to even allow progression? So let's see how the system works out in practice, shall we? The first gym is a Rock-type gym. Now that means you need to be allowed to entry to this gym, according to Let's Go, a Fighting type, a Grass type, a Water type, or a Ground type. In Generation 1 this means, between the start of the game and Brock, the first gym leader, you must catch a Mankey in Route 22. That is the only option, as there are no Water types, no Grass types, and no Ground types between Pallet Town and Pewter City. Unless they start adding extra Pokemon that were never there to begin with. So how exactly is this a remaster of Pokemon Yellow, Masuda? Or is a remaster in the same vein as Oras, which was nothing like its predecessors? Really, what impression I get from Let's Go is that they're trying to incentivize Go players into playing the core RPG, specifically by buying it, by mutilating what core fans enjoy about the core games in the first place. But here's the thing, the reason they aren't playing the core RPG is because they don't want to. Otherwise, they'd already be playing it. You want to play the old Pokemon games as a kid? Which is an argument I've heard far too much. The opportunity's already there. Nintendo has released both Gen 1 and Gen 2 on Virtual Console, allowing you to play the classics for no more than the price of a pre-owned 2DS, which is, at this point, a fraction of the price it costs to start playing Let's Go. Yes, it has good ideas. Personally, I'm in love with the idea of partner Pokemon. I'm excited to finally see my party follow me around throughout the world in full 3D. But I'm worried about the inevitable split that this game will cause between casual and long-time fans of the series. And in the long term, that will draw focus away from the areas in the next generation that really need work, like the story, the setting, and the distinct lack of variety. I mean, let's be real here, the story in Yellow is trash. Evil criminal organization of the day does evil things, you step in to stop them. One time it's thievery, another it's breaking and entering, next it's an actual hostage situation. Honestly, the story is as cookie cutter and as safe as you can get. At the very least, the later generations introduced something different. For Gen 2 it was Forced Evolution, which was a genuine, decent discussion about ethics with animals, and a gang attempting to rise from its fall. Gen 3 introduced genuinely earth-shattering consequences if the gang succeeded. Gen 4 started bringing characters into those gangs, but giving them personality and passions beyond I be evil, Orange Man bad. This remaster is all but distracting those that should be working on a new generation of the much-beloved core RPG, instead of wasting the time attempting to wring Niantic's saving grace dry with all the intentions of EA with a multiplayer shooter. And probably my least favourite part about these games, and yes, I will go on to become a complete tangent, and I apologise, the name, Pikachu and Eevee. Pikachu has been somewhat unwitting mascot of this franchise for decades, always somehow being the game's lovable mouse. Honestly, I can't tell you how, seeing as in the first game he was completely useless for over half the major battles. He wasn't even in Gen 2 until post-game. They've only recently started giving the questioningly slimming rodent its time in the sun since Gen 5's initial reception, with the fans that has left Game Freak with Vietnam-esque flashbacks every time someone suggests they try to make a new game from scratch. So they play the nostalgia card at every bloody opportunity. And now it's taken shape in some sort of horrific amalgamation of old and new that's bastardized what's made this franchise the heavy hitter it once was. Pikachu's been capturable before the first gym in the past 4 games. I'm guessing I'm saying that Pikachu just isn't that good. So it's insulting when they expect us to enjoy a partner Pokemon that is ultimately entirely replaceable and expect me to like it. And don't even get me started on the little gimmick that could. God, do I hate that damn fox. Now, I know the first thought that all of you have is this. How could anyone hate Eevee? And you're right, I don't. I hate it for what it stands for in Pokemon. According to the Pokedex, Eevee is the evolution Pokemon, able to evolve into different types depending on its environment. So please explain to me how there is yet to be a ground, rock, poison or steel type evolution, seeing as these are some of the most common places in the entirety of the Pokemon world. Or did we forget that every single game has a huge cavern system that spans at least half the region in some cases? So, Eevee has 8 possible evolutions. 8 out of the total of 18 types. Excuse me for saying, but 44% courage is pretty poor to be setting as the pariah example of any process, even evolution, right? Now, I'm not to say that every part of Eevee is bad. On the contrary, I think the idea is brilliant. It gives the chance to become truly unique. But the current coverage is just a poor gimmick that can't deliver on its promises. And in this game, you can't even evolve your partner, which makes giving you an Eevee more of a liability than a reliable partner. Because if Eevee could evolve, it would be much more reliable. So, Partner Pikachu is useless for over half the game. Partner Eevee will become entirely useless once you pick up one of the Eevees in-game that can evolve. So why exactly did they decide to forego the opportunity to give us the Gen 1 starters is beyond me. Because I can't tell you giving us that would then mean they'd have to think hard about naming these damned versions. Oh, the horror! What trials you must take on, Nintendo, for our honour. But you can style their hair, cries Nintendo. Now hold the fucking presses. You mean I can now do the same shit to 2 more Pokemon that I could only do to 1 already? Now why didn't you say this sooner, Game Freak? This changes everything. Listen, I'm all for personalising your Pokemon, but until I can put a party hat on a Magnemite, this feature isn't gonna fly. Let me customise every Pokemon. Then you can have the chance to call it a feature before I start scoffing at you. So let's sum this up, because by now it's getting laborious to keep my thoughts on track. We have a nerfed battle system, a dull story, a few much-loved and previously removed, I might add, features, and partner Pokemon more useless than level 1 Magikarp. Add all this onto the recent news that the Pro Controller won't work with this game, the Mew will be held hostage on a £50 piss-poor excuse for a controller, that I failed to see how it works for any other function than capturing the things, and that Melmetal and Meltan are actually a thing, and you have the makings of one hell of a potential disaster, if you present it badly, waiting to happen. And how does Nintendo present it? There are so many ways to play Pokemon, which is why we've decided to show you a new way of playing. Which, if you aren't fluent in PR speak like I am, is swiftly translated to, you're playing our game wrong, play it like this. Which doesn't sound particularly, inviting to quite a few of us out there. That were willing to give you a chance on this one while we waited for the real Pokemon game next year, Nintendo. So just ignore it, say the naysayers. It doesn't affect the core games. They said there'll be a new generation next year for the Switch. Why are you so hostile to this? Firstly, every official interview, report, or piece of news about Let's Go coming direct from Game Freak or Nintendo has called this a core RPG, meaning this is officially, according to Game Freak, a Gen 7 game. Secondly, they've also said that if this game sells well and is well received, that a fair few of its features will bleed into the newer games, so this will affect the next games in the series. And why am I so hostile to this? Because this is no way to treat your fan base. As it becomes more and more prevalent in this age, the creators are rigorously mocking their initial fan base in order to gain this ever-elusive broader audience, which has Star Wars for the past 2 years, Star Trek for the past year, and Doctor Who in the last few months can vouch, literally doesn't exist. Had they called these games what they are, spin-offs, and acted like they were spin-offs, by not hinting that some of their features, whether good or bad, are here to stay, you would have likely never seen this video from me. But because there are people that will look at this relatively civilized list of concerns and call me not a real Pokemon fan, because there are those that will brush off any genuine criticism of this game, like people did with my least favourite game on the Switch, Breath of the Wild. Yes, I don't like Breath of the Wild. Carry on. And would rather lather themselves into a righteous fury. Because there are those that will complain if the next FPS Halo was 80% Halo Wars, but are fine with this, the fucking hypocrites. Because of all of you, this video exists. To try and show you at the very least a point where we're willing to agree on common ground. Maybe instead of just calling out people who complain, you can see it from their point of view. Try to compare that to your own, and then try to discuss the issue, regardless of whether or not you see the problems as unfounded. But who am I kidding, eh? It's just much easier to insult each other over the internet rather than have a civilized debate, isn't it? Fuck you, Nintendo, and happy anniversary, Pokemon. Hope we get to keep you around for a few more years, buddy. And until the day you return to us, I'll be keeping a close eye on Temtem. Did I mention there's a new game coming from some other company called Temtem? Toodle pip, everyone, and have a good one.